So thanks for having me. Before we start talking about astronomy and curriculum, and because everybody has been listening to many talks, um, I'd like people who can access the internet or have a device to try and go to menti.com, and you can put in the code over there, 83110701, and try and fill the answers there. We'll come back to this later on at some stage, but once everybody has filled in the responses, we'll talk a bit about where all of this craziness is going to lead today. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm hoping everybody has connected. Okay, so a little bit about myself before we begin, and then you'll realize why all of this kind of makes sense or may not make sense. My background is in cosmology, art and design, and education. So I never knew what I wanted to study. Therefore, I got confused and studied all of them. That removes all the confusion now. Maybe, I don't know. So astronomy education. The way we conceptualize astronomy education is that there is the teaching and learning, which the teachers that are there do it, students that are there. And then it has different components. It has the curriculum, it has teacher training, outreach, development. Now, one thing that connects all of these is the deep culture and history and the heritage that's there within astronomy. Every country, every culture around the world has some connection to astronomy in some shape or form. And so it's important to recognize that astronomy is global and everybody has their own stories to bring to astronomy, which is quite powerful when you think about a field. Now, this is a symposium about space and astronomy, and none of my talks have ever been done without one reference to Star Trek. So you will be seeing a lot of references to Star Trek. But when you read the quote from Star Trek, space, the final frontier, voyages of the Starship Enterprise, a continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, seek out new life, new civilizations, and to boldly go. When you think about these words, about exploration, about voyages, about seeking out civilizations, it's really about that imagination, about the awe, about the wonder. And astronomy, I mean, I'm a bit biased, but astronomy can show us all these beautiful things that are there in the universe. And it's a starting point to start discussions with people about not only the mysteries that are there, but about what they understand from the universe. And I mean, a lot of you are teachers, and one quote that really captures this idea is that teaching science is about ideas, about the wondrous world. And Feynman really talks about this, in essence, in a way to capture people's imagination about all the different things that are happening. So it is about curiosity. And how can we use astronomy to put in our students' mind that imagination, the wonder. So astronomy has a lot of potential, yes, but how we do it is a different story. So I'll give you another poll for people to do while I keep on talking about all these crazy things. This is another thing, and it's questions about what are the challenges that are there in teaching astronomy from your perspective in schools or as researchers or within Sweden. What do you think are the challenges that are there that prevents teachers from teaching astronomy? So same like that, go to menti.com, 79494566, and hopefully I'll give everyone a couple of seconds to have a look at that, and we'll come back to the results of both of these. So what do the Starship Enterprise, Shrek, and onions have in common? Now, I can't hear anybody over there, so think about it, and hopefully you'll have a connection. If you don't, that's okay, and I'll tell you the answer, because this is kind of odd, me trying to question everybody that I can't see. So it's all about layers. If you've seen Shrek, you'll know what I mean. If you've seen Star Trek, the Starship Enterprise has different layers. If you've ever had an onion, which I'm hoping you have, if you haven't, you should try it sometime. It's also got layers. Just like cake. I like cake. And it's about 10:20 at night, and I would love a piece of cake right now. Education is also layered, and curriculum is also layered, and astronomy education is layered. So astronomy education, what we're trying is more than just definitions of, planets, the speed of light, the age of the universe. It's more than that. It's about hope, wonder, optimism, perspectives, and most of all, it's about making connections. And these connections are layered. If you don't remember anything from this talk today, it's all about layers and cake. Astronomy education research tries to explore and understand these deep connections. And that's where I kind of work in between the education, the science, bringing it all together. And it's really about, the research is really about supporting teachers for them to inspire their students and to really allow them to become these true cosmopolitans, citizens of the cosmos on this pale blue earth, or pale blue dot, I should say. When we look at astronomy education research over time, and this is a bit of research I've done with my colleagues, we can see that there has been a drastic increase in research to do with astronomy education. It's always been there, but since the early 2000s, it's just taken off very quickly. And astronomy education research, we have looked into people have looked into different things, conceptions, content knowledge, teacher training, resources, engagement. They've done a fair bit of all of these. And there's also these connections that are there in between all of these ideas that are being researched. So one thing that we found when we looked at all the literature is that there's not a lot of research on curriculum within the context of astronomy. There's a lot of research done about curriculum, but what about astronomy in the curriculum? And that was an area that hadn't been researched. Now, if you think about curriculum and you think, I hate the curriculum, you can only blame one person, Franklin Bobbitt. He came up with the idea in 1918. And so 1918 and 1924, there were two books. One was called The Curriculum and one was How to Make a Curriculum. Now, when I look at the thickness of that book of How to Make a Curriculum, I'm immediately frightened because that's a very big book to read about how to make a bigger book about how to teach students stuff. So when we think of curriculum, it's a socio-political statement, which means that whenever a new curriculum comes out, somebody hates the curriculum. Somebody will criticize it. Some have good reasons, some just want to criticize the curriculum. You can never please everyone with the curriculum. So when I speak to people about the curriculum, this is a general sentiment. There's something always missing, there's something that needs to be added, or the curriculum needs to be changed, but it's there. But let's come back to a more positive note. Astronomy and curriculum, because astronomy makes people feel so good, right? Sound like an ad for astronomy. But when we think about astronomy, John Percy, McNally, a lot of scholars and astronomers have talked about the importance of astronomy in the curriculum and why it should be included. So there's a lot of arguments for it. And there's also a lot of arguments for not including astronomy in the curriculum. We'll get to that. But the question is, okay, we want to include astronomy in the curriculum. There needs to be more astronomy in the curriculum. All well and good. What astronomy is there in the curriculum? And that's the most important question. So this question wasn't actually researched at all. And so in about 2016, 2017, we started a project that we reviewed the curricula in the OECD countries, so 35 member countries, and China and South Africa. So we looked at the curriculum over all these countries. In total, there was about 52 curricula. I had a fun time reading all of them. And we put out a paper, and there was some initial results about it. Later on in 2019, when the IAU Office of Astronomy for Education was established, and I started working a year later as a postdoc over there, it provided an opportunity to actually take that first study a lot further. So the IAU has NIEX, or Astronomy Education Coordinators around the world, And so the goal was to do a detailed analysis of the curricula for every country that the OA has a NIAC. So that would be, at currently, it's over 100 countries around the world that there are representatives. So when you think of that, of course, you think, oh, all of this curriculum. This is pretty much every starship captain in Star Trek, except for the new one. Couldn't find a picture of him doing that, but hey. So how do you do it? Well, it's simple. We started by first creating a spreadsheet, a survey to find out specific information about curricula in each country. So where astronomy occurs, in which subjects, at which age levels, what is the actual translated statement from the language to English, so we could do some analysis. Is it mandatory? Is it not mandatory? So we did a very, very fine-grained, focused study. It's still ongoing, so it's not finished. Currently, we, meaning I, have reviewed 76 curricula, which is over 3,000 statements I worked out the other night, for 65 countries. Yes, I have looked at Sweden's curriculum. So don't worry, you're in there. You're doing a good job. It's good. The preliminary analysis. This is seen only for the second time, okay? And you are very lucky. Astronomy is there pretty much, as we found out in our first study, across all year levels. There is some aspect of astronomy. People may not realize and call it astronomy, but it is there. And the topics that are there: celestial motion, day and night, seasons, tides, solar system, about the planets, earth science, about the earth, and gravity. These are the big things that pop out. And when we go at a year-by-year breakdown, we see the same pattern of celestial motion, solar system. It gets smaller and smaller, and in high school, it suddenly swaps. So in grades 10, 11, 12, suddenly we jump into cosmology, which is crazy, but it does happen. And the topics, the subjects where we see astronomy topics coming is science, geography, natural science, general science. Each country has their own way that they call it. They may have themes, humans and their connection to nature, and within there may be astronomy. But again, it is within science, geography, except for high school, where astronomy kind of moves into the physics domain. So at this point, we kind of knew that we would get this because it was a running theme in our first study. But what we did this time that we haven't done is we had the big ideas in astronomy, which is a booklet that was developed over a few years, and I was one of the co-authors on this. And it's 11 big ideas in astronomy, each one having their sub-ideas, so a total of 97 ideas. And this was done through a consensus through the astronomy and astronomy education community. So you have the 11 big ideas that cover the major things, the major ideas currently that we know about astronomy. And this will change as time passes. And because I like cosmology, big idea 6 has to do everything with cosmology. Well, kind of, not everything. But that's what we wanted to do now, was to try and figure out whether the topics we see in the curriculum, how do they align to the big ideas? And what we found is that in general, there is, again, because there's a lot of focus on celestial motion, which means that there's a lot of focus on big ideas 2 and 3, which is to do with celestial motion. And we find a clump of places where there are no big ideas for. And so this creates a discussion about how do we actually frame curriculum to draw on the big ideas. The big ideas is really a guide for individuals who want to develop a curriculum. One other interesting thing that we found was when we look at the scale of ideas, as in what sort of spatial scales the concepts in the curriculum are, we find that there's a lot of focus on the immediate astronomy environment, like seasons, day and night, planets, solar system. And in the senior levels, there's cosmology. But within the middle, about galaxies, the Milky Way, extragalactic, there's actually not a lot of focus. So there's actually a gap, and we're trying to kind of characterize that gap. So what we find, basically, is that astronomy is there in most curricula, There's a lot of emphasis on solar system, celestial motion, not much about galactic and extragalactic. A lot of the curriculum statements are facts of astronomy. The distance between the Earth and the Sun is this. So there's a lot of focus on facts. There's too many concepts sometimes in one curriculum statement. I have read curriculum statements that smash together 20 different astronomy ideas in one statement. I have no idea how someone's supposed to teach that, but it's there. Some countries use the curriculum as a textbook. There are also some mistakes in curriculum statements. There's a varying between primary and high school, which is found. And there's also not much emphasis on the social and cultural aspects of astronomy, how astronomy relates to the culture, to the history of that country or area. There is some alignment to the big ideas, but this alignment is not perfect, and it's not going to be perfect because the big ideas was only recently created. So where to next? The thing is, astronomy in most curricula is only, this is for Australia and the NGSS, which is the US, but we have it for all curricula. Astronomy is only a small part of science subjects. And in addition, astronomy is also a very, very tiny part of the entire curriculum. So when we ask the question, should we have more astronomy in the curriculum? Should astronomy be its own subject? And we'll look at the results soon. Actually, let's look at the results. I'm quite curious what's happening. Ooh, more astronomy in the curricula. Astronomy has its own subject, something else, not sure. Very interesting. This is very exciting for me. Sorry, I get excited about seeing plots and stuff there. Okay, back to my talk, because I have something to say about this. We'll get to that. My personal view is that if you're going to put astronomy in the curriculum, you've got to remove some stuff, or the teachers will hate you because you put too much stuff in there. But a better approach is to look at the fact that there is all these other subjects and all these other science subjects. So a better approach would be to actually make use of astronomy as a context to make connections. Because we know that astronomy has all of these different connections to these different fields, to biology, to physics, to chemistry, to culture, to electronics, to big data. So how can we actually use these together? And we're actually writing a paper right now, which is coming out soon, and we'll talk about how to actually develop a curriculum that taps into these. So stay tuned. But the most important thing is think about connections and layers. And because I'm giving the talk and I'm allowed to talk about stuff, I want to, before getting to that, actually, I want to look at this. Most of you may have seen this or may have not seen this. That's okay if you haven't seen it. That little dot that you see somewhere there, that little dot is Earth. From a few billion kilometers away, around the orbit of Neptune. This was taken by Voyager. And Carl Sagan talks about this aspect that astronomy is a humbling science. It makes us see the vastness of the universe, but also as human beings, it connects us because every person, every human being for millennia, for all of space and time, has lived on this blue dot. No borders, nothing. It's just a blue dot. And I would actually pay anyone who would try to figure out if there are humans on this dot from this distance without the use of any instruments. Very hard. Can't do it. Again, something philosophical to think about during your coffee break. Think about this. So the most important thing is that we're connected to everything. And as teachers, we want to use those connections to do whatever your goal is for your students, whether it is to give them new skills, but it is about students realizing that there's this bigger picture. And before I go, we're doing a bit of research now on bringing astronomy, on really tapping into astronomy in schools, in the classroom. And this is a project I'm leading with a few researchers in Australia and in Sweden. And it focuses on the students actually working with real data and real images. But the first part of this project is about looking at what people think about astronomy, what students think about astronomy. So if you're a teacher in grades 8 to 12, ages 14 to 18, please contact me. We would love to have you as part of this research, because this is an international research, and we're trying to figure out, where does astronomy fit in all of these big, grand ideas about wherever we are in the universe and the cosmos. So, as Spock would say, as I would say, live long and prosper to all of you. And thank you, and I will leave it at that. But before I do, let's look at the results of the second. So, oh, there's someone else just filled it. They were very late. Oh, okay. What are the challenges that prevent teachers? Full curriculum. So it makes it hard to put more astronomy there. Lack of time, confidence in teaching, absolutely. I agree with that. The confidence in teaching, yes. Lack of teaching resources, okay. And the other ones, astronomy is not important. Whoever you are, okay. I know it's not you. You think that people who write the curriculum think that astronomy is not important. That's okay. I'm not blaming you, right? No challenges. That's good. No one thinks that there are any challenges. But there are challenges. And lack of support. Okay, this has been very interesting. So I will leave my screen shared, and I'm happy to take any questions. I like answering questions rather than talking, and it's a coffee break, so I want you to have the full enjoyment of your coffee break cake.